Welcome to episode 2 of Dice, Decks, and Design, a podcast about game design all across the world, where today we're going to be continuing our discussion of the Magic the Gathering, Wizards of the Coast, Game Designer Search number 3. Last episode, we went ahead and did the first 30 questions of the multiple choice provided for the Game Designer Search. If you don't know what that is, basically, Wizards of the Coast decided, hey, there are a bunch of cool people that we want to see who's really good at designing Magic cards. And they said, hey, we're going to open this up to the public, and if you can prove to us that you're one of our best designers among the public, we'll go ahead and bring you in, and you'll work here at Wizards of the Coast. Unfortunately, I was too young at the time to be able to actually do that. So, we are doing it right now with all of you lovely folks. And so that way, as a way to kick off this podcast, you get to see the way that I approach design problems, how I think it through, because I discuss it. And we also get to look at some cool projects. So we're going to go ahead and flip over here. Boom, get ready to do it. We went through the first 30 questions. If you want to see those, make sure to go check out episode 1 of the podcast. It is on YouTube under Dice, Decks, and Design episode 1. You can find my YouTube channel, The Fabric of Reality. It's the same as here on Twitch. Check it out. It's an awesome time. I think it's an awesome time, obviously. And today we're going to keep going. We're going to do some more questions. And then for the last 10 minutes, we're going to talk about the design of 2 Magic cards I designed for the Beacon of Creation podcast. It's another podcast where they talk about the design of Magic the Gathering specifically. They're designing their own set as a community. It's an awesome place. Check it out if you enjoy talking about design, or if you just enjoy hearing 2 awesome people ramble about Magic the Gathering. And so every week they have a design contest where they have people submit designs, and I'm going to talk through mine before they go ahead and see it. So we're going to jump right into it. We have Game Designer Search number 3, multiple choice. Question number 31. The 31st question. There's a lot of questions so far. When set design holds a draft, most of the time there are exactly 8 drafters. Why is that? Answer A, that's the most common number of drafters in the real world. B, we want 4 spikes, 3 Timmies and Tammies, and 1 Johnny Jenny. 3, we have tables that sit 8 drafters. D, our small booster boxes hold 24 booster packs. Or E, our teams have 8 people. Now immediately we can throw out B, C, and D. Those are unrealistic things to expect of people. In fact, in reality, there are more often people that are mixes of the 3 different types of people. We talked about those last episode. The difference between a Timmy, a Johnny, and a Spike. And in reality, the spikes make up a far lower percentage than the Timmies and Johnnies combined. Having a table that sits 8 drafters, I mean, yes, that's true. That's how most tables you can fit people around, but that's not really a design reason to do it. That's kind of just a convenience thing. And their booster box have 36 packs and not 24 packs, so that's obviously not the answer yet either. Now, teams having 8 people, again, isn't really a design idea, but you want to design your systems around the thing that the most people have in the real world. So I think that option A is the best answer. It's the most common set in the real world. Let me just adjust my camera a bit. Make sure this looks good. Can you see me? Can you hear me? Yes. Awesome. If I had $1 for every time I've gone live when my mic was muted, I'd have a few bucks, because that's a common problem of mine. But we're not that this time, which is wonderful. Question number 32. You've designed a card and you want the play design team to like it. How should you choose your casting cost? Now, casting cost in Magic the Gathering is the resources you have to pay to get an ability. Really quickly, because I did read through some of these questions before we started this stream, because I had it pulled up, and I was excited to get going, but I didn't want to start early, just because that doesn't give people time to plan. When you design a card, you want the cast to be the fairest you can get it for that isn't absolutely broken, and that's the first option here. You pick the strongest cost that isn't broken. Everything else doesn't really talk about actually designing it. You either pawn the idea off to someone else, you just kind of feel your way through it, which is how I start all my designs. I'm like, what do I think this should cost? Okay, this should cost like 5 mana. We'll make it cost that. And a lot of the time, if you can't play test, that's where I leave it. But if you think, what's this effect that I want? What do I want for it? How effective do I need it to be? Is it has there been a card that's already been printed? Does this have a similar effect to something else? Can I base my cost off of that? So let's see. What's a good game? Hearthstone. Hearthstone is an awesome example. There was the 4-mana 7/7 with Overload 2 in Shaman. It was a big meme a couple of years ago. Everyone was like, oh, 4-mana 7/7? That's absolutely insane. And now they have even more powerful minions, and they've got this thing, they've power crept their way forward to the point where you can't really print a 4-mana 7/7 if that's all it is, because it's not good enough anymore. So if you take a base casting cost that's similar, and then you just make it cheaper, that's not going to do anything for you. That's just going to make your game, it's going to increase the power creep, and it's going to make power creep really bad in your game. And we'll do a whole episode dedicated to power creep in the future, because it's an incredibly interesting design topic, how to design around power creep. And there have been some games that do it well and some games that don't. But designing not to have that is very important. So I think picking the strongest cost that isn't broken is the best way to price your cards. Which of these evergreen keyword abilities is most likely to be put on a common white creature? Common and white. There's a few options. Indestructible. Game over. Talk show. Hello. Welcome to the chat. Indestructible. It's one of those things where that's not really a super white ability, and it's definitely not a common ability. It's one of those things that you see a lot more on either artifacts, which they don't have a color, or artifacts or like legendary creatures. So the gods from Journey to Nyx, they had indestructible a lot of the times. Flash is a blue ability. You got Snapcaster Mage, that's kind of the biggest flash creature that you know of. There's also the fairy that you use in Delver. The Delver fairy, whatever its name is. That has Flash. Flash is a very blue ability. It lets you play things at kind of that instant speed, which is a very blue thing to do. Vigilance is very white. You know, you got all your knights, you got your soldiers. Vigilance is very white. Double Strike, also a very white ability. Trample, green. Throw that over into the green category. So now between Vigilance and Double Strike, we have to decide which is the most common for, common is the key word now. We've narrowed it down to the white creatures. So we have to figure out what could be a common ability. And I'm sure if we started looking up Magic cards, we'd be able to quickly find a correlation, but that's boring. We're here to talk about design. We're not here to get every question correct. And so Vigilance is the most white of all these abilities. Double Strike is also a very reddish ability. So I'm going to go with Vigilance. I think Vigilance kind of embodies the idea of white, and it's important to keep that going. It's very common. I think you'd see it a lot more at the common level. But also there could be a very good argument made for Double Strike. Vigilance gives you a little bit more power than Double Strike does, because Double Strike, you still have to be able to do combat damage, but then it also gives First Strike and extra damage. So I think Double Strike is a little more powerful than Vigilance, meaning you'd want it more on uncommon creatures. Which of the following best describes how a counterspell-based blue deck should contribute to a standard environment? Ooh, this is quite the controversial topic. Now, when I started playing Magic, I absolutely hated counterspells, hated all that blue garbage, because you could just your opponent was basically stopping you from playing, and that's not really all that fun. So now we have to break down how can we make that a healthy competitive deck that still is healthy for standard and lets everyone else play as well. So option A, standard is the most fun when the counterspell deck is mono blue. Ooh, that's interesting. That stops them from splashing other colors. So you're getting double, triple blues, things like Cryptic Command, just straight counterspell, those things where you need to commit to having lots of blue mana all the time. So you don't get the other cool white abilities or the green abilities or the red abilities or the black abilities. And those are all pretty often very useful in your in your control decks. The biggest one recently is the Approach of the Second Sun deck that was popular in Ixalan Standard. Option B, standard is the most fun when the counterspell player has the ability to stop the opponent from doing anything. No, absolutely not. That's not the most fun. The most fun is when the counterspell player has to evaluate their resources against the opponent's resources and outlast them and know when to spend their resources and how to spend them to most effectively shut down their opponent's deck. Option C. Standard is the most fun when the counterspell player has a way to win quickly and efficiently once they take control. And I think this is the most important. The biggest problem with control decks is that they don't have a way to win quickly. They kind of just durdle around for the entire game. They say, hey, I'm going to stop you from playing anything, but we're going to wait until you mill your deck out before we can actually finish the game and I win. That's not fun. That's like do-nothing control. No one likes playing against that. It's not fun to play against. And as a designer, your job is to cultivate an environment where even if you're losing, you don't feel absolutely destroyed every step of the way to the point where there's no hope and you're just playing cards because your opponent can't end the game. If you ever get to that point, your opponent should have been able to end the game, and that would make the game more fun. So I believe this is the best answer. Option D, being Standard is the most fun when the counterspell deck is the strongest deck in Standard, which, no, the most powerful deck should not be the one that says you can't do anything. Or option E, Standard is the most fun when counterspell decks aren't competitive. No, I think that it's fun. It's important to have that element in the metagame, so that way the people who want to play that deck can play that deck. Question number 35. Assuming the creature is strong enough to see Standard play, which of the following isn't a good quality for the green creature to have? Assuming the creature is strong enough to see Standard play, which of the following isn't? So this card will be in Standard, but what is not good for it to have? It draws multiple cards without attacking or blocking. That's incredibly powerful. Any game which uses limited hand size, and limited card draw as a resource, so something where you can't just pick up your entire deck at any point for free. Being able to draw cards is an incredibly powerful ability. It uses 1/1 counters to grow to a very large size. That's a perfectly fine thing. That's a very green thing to do. Green likes to get big and be strong and swole. I actually just played in a cube draft literally 45 minutes ago where I drafted a green-blue deck, and it was a lot of fun. I'd never really given green a shot because I always thought it was just, it's just about getting big green things, big dumb green things. But it's a lot of fun to be able to have all these counters floating around, and your creatures are about getting value. Green is a very value-oriented thing, and getting like lots of value out of your off your one cards. So something that uses 1/1 counters is a perfectly fine quality for a green creature to have. It fits the flavor of the creatures, it fits the design, and it fits the environment that the cards are in. Being able to tap to produce mana, again, a very green ability. It fits that roundhouse. You see that and you immediately think, oh, that's a green card. If you see Llanowar Elves, probably the most famous green card of all time, you know immediately, oh, that's a green card. I'm fine with that. No big deal. And Llanowar Elves taps for a green mana. It just makes green mana. It's very good. Option D, it can destroy an artifact or enchantment. Now, this is something that green has very little access to, is being able to destroy artifacts and enchantments. So we could immediately look at this as saying, that makes up for a weakness that green had, that we didn't want it to make up for. And that's another good thing to look at, because if we can just say, nope, we're going to shut down your entire game plan, we're going to destroy your enchantments, destroy your artifacts, no big deal, that's not great. Because green doesn't have access to a lot of those things. You have to get other colors in to do that. Or if it has a larger stats than other creatures as its mana cost. That's kind of the point of green, is that it gets lots of value out of every single card they play. They are just a little more efficient than everyone else. They have a little more oomph, a little more like, they can just get there a little more. They do a little bit more once they're there. They're a little bit stronger than their costs. Ooh, I accidentally moved that down. That's not good. Okay. So being able to destroy an artifact or enchantment, I think, is one of a poor quality for a green creature to have. It's either that or drawing cards. Drawing cards just in general is a very powerful ability. And destroying artifacts or enchantments is, again, another one of those things where it's a powerful ability. As I've been talking more, though, I've realized that as an identity, green has a harder time drawing cards than it does destroying artifacts or enchantments. And so that's kind of the most important to kind of hold back on. If we were to bring back the Storm mechanic, oh yeah, I love Storm. I think Storm is a really fun thing to play. I understand why it's rated so highly on the Storm scale. It's the chance a mechanic has of not coming back is even listed as on the Storm scale. Storm being the most unlikely to ever come back, according to Mark Rosewater, kind of the lead designer for Magic. So if we were to bring back the Storm mechanic, which guild would be the best match for the mechanic? And the most famous Storm card we have ever is Grapeshot. And Grapeshot is deal 1 damage to target creature or player for 1 red mana, but it has the Storm keyword. And so for every other card cast this turn, you get to create a copy of Grapeshot and shoot that. So it allows you to, if you play a bunch of cantrips and spells and things in one turn, and you've played like 20, 30 cards because you've generated a bunch of mana and drew a bunch of cards and kept playing cards and spells, you can play Grapeshot and do 30 damage to your opponent, which I think is fun. And that's the modern deck that I have been spending the most time playing and learning. Where would this fit into? I think I'm going to have to pull up the Guilds of Ravnica real fast. I haven't been playing Magic for very long, so please forgive me. So that way I can know exactly which colors go to. This is taking me unfortunately long. Eek. Here we go. Images. Okay, perfect. Here we go. This is not helpful. There we go. Perfect. Got a nice little infographic. Infographics are a great way and pretty much always how I figure out stuff. So, we have Rakdos, I know is red-black. That's the one I do know. Oh, Orzhov is blue-black? Orzhov is black-white. They focus on greed and manipulation. Rakdos being death and destruction. Selesnya, harmony, balance, and nature in green-white. Simic in blue and green in preservation and creation. And Izzet in green-blue, which is knowledge and unpredictability. It's definitely going to be Izzet. With blue and red, they have lots of cantrippy support for storm spells. They have things like Preordain, Opt, Brainstorm in blue to get lots of card advantage, and then they have cards like Lightning Bolt or Wizard's Lightning or Lightning Helix. Lightning Helix has white. Just kidding. Not Lightning Helix. They have lots of things that talk about lightning and just deal straight damage, as well as Grapeshot. And so Izzet, having this very cantrippy play style, lends itself very well to the Storm mechanic. So I think Izzet would be the best match to play in the Ravnica set. Question number 37. A synergy theme in a set needs you to draw specific cards for it to work. This isn't happening frequently enough. Which of the following mechanics would not help increase the frequency of these interactions? Kicker, Transmute, Investigate, Cycling, or Scry. Kicker lets you pay extra things for extra abilities. Now, needing to draw specific cards in order to work has nothing to do with getting extra effects. So Kicker is not what we want. Transmute. MTG Wiki. Transmute. I believe Transmute is what allows you to pay discard this card, search your library for a card with the same converted mana cost as this card, reveal it, and put it into your hand, then shuffle your library. Transmute only as a sorcery. Transmute basically lets you tutor for things of the same converted mana cost. It would work very well to help fix a synergy theme problem of drawing cards. If you have to draw cards and you're not getting your cards that you need, Transmute works very well at getting those cards for you, so that way you know exactly what you need to do. They help you go fetch out what you want. Investigate lets you draw, Cycling lets you draw, and Scry lets you kind of look at the top of your deck and kind of manipulate it and say, I don't want to draw this, we'll put it on the bottom, or yep, I want that, put it back on the top. Investigate, Cycling, and Scry would all help. Which of the following mechanics would not help increase? Oh, it's Kicker. Yeah, Reading the question really explains the question, and I feel like we might have been able to cut down this test, which it's looking like it's going to take me 3 or 4 episodes to get through, which is 3 or 4 hours. It looks like we'd be able to cut down the length of this quiz significantly if I was literate. So that's what I will work on before the next episode, is learning how to read properly. Anyways, which of the following designs from Legends would be the most reasonable to recost into a competitive standard card? Ooh, okay. Looks like we're going to have to go look up some cards. My favorite way to look up cards is Scryfall. So we're going to go over, and I'm going to pull up Scryfall on another tab, and I will be reading some cards to you, ladies and gentlemen. The first card we have is Presence of the Master. We also have Acid Rain, Land Tax, Arborea, and Mana Drain. These are all cards that, what would be the most reasonable to recost into a competitive standard card? Presence of the Master. Oh, I spelled master with an A. Presence of the Master is 3 and a white. It's for an enchantment that says whenever a player plays an enchantment spell, counter it. Basically, you can't play enchantments. Sorry. That's very powerful and not a whole lot of fun. Next up, Acid Rain. Acid Rain is 3 and a blue that says destroy all forests. Pop, just like that. Next up is Land Tax. Land Tax is a white that says, oh, is reprinted in Battle Bond. Huh. Land Tax says, at the beginning of your upkeep, if an opponent controls more lands than you, you may search your library for up to 3 basic land cards, reveal them, put them into your hand, then shuffle your library. So it allows you to go grab more lands, basic lands specifically. Grab more lands, bring them back in, say, what up? We got some lands. Yee. Lots of lands. And I'm leaning towards Land Tax as being the most reworkable at the moment. If you recost it, make it cost more. It allows you to kind of catch up later in the game if your opponent does a really good job of ramping out. Next up, we have Arborea. Arborea is 2 green for a world enchantment that says creatures can't attack a player who didn't cast a spell and didn't put a card onto the battlefield during his or her last turn. That's a very strong fog effect. And it stops... It basically allows you to, if you didn't cast a spell or didn't create a permanent, you basically can't be attacked. Which a lot of control decks don't run any permanents other than lands, or I guess they don't run any creatures. So it'd be very easy to just say, nope, I'm not going to put anything onto the battlefield. Once this comes down, we're just going to work our way through, get my Approach to the Second Sun, play that, and then win the game. It's a very negative effect, and I feel like Land Tax is a much more valuable effect in that it only works if your opponent's ahead, and it just needs to be recosted. Arborea, on the other hand, is something, if you build your deck around it where you don't really run any permanents, your opponent can't do anything to stop you. So it's kind of shuts them out of the game in a way that because they didn't build their deck specifically around Arborea, you'd have 2 decks emerge in this. You'd have Arborea decks and anti-Arborea decks. You'd have the decks that make use of Arborea and the decks that are built specifically to destroy Arborea. And that's not a healthy standard metagame if there's only 2 decks, and 1 card is dictating the entire thing. Next up, we have Mana Drain. Oh yeah. Mana Drain is blue. Counter target spell at the beginning of your next main phase. Add an amount of colorless mana to your mana pool equal to that spell's CMC. Okay, that's interesting. That's interesting for sure. I have to think about this one for a second. Land Tax is definitely the answer, so we're just going to move on. At question number 39, Which category of player most dislikes high variance in gameplay, with high variance defined as larger swings in outcome possibilities for individual cards outside of the player's control? Okay. Who dislikes larger swings in outcome possibilities for individual cards outside of the player's control? Larger swing. I'm sorry. I have to read this like real careful. This is worded funky. Okay, so who doesn't like one card being able to swing the game really hard without them being able to interact with it? And I think a new player. Which category of players most dislikes high variance in gameplay? This is hard. I think a player that prefers multiplayer, not really, because kind of Commander is really defined by that ability where you can just come back from nothing. Like, if you have no permanence, nothing, and you get a Cyclonic Rift, all of a sudden you're the most important person on the board. Or if you get an Oblivion Stone resolved, you're the most important person in that game. Everyone cares about you and your Oblivion Stone. So I think people who prefer Commander gameplay really kind of like that individual swing, because it allows anyone to kind of take the game away, and it makes for very, like, much more, what's the word that I want? Much more varied gameplay, which I think is always a good thing. Being able to say that, nope, there's not just this one thing that's always going to win it. Like, you're just always going to grind out a little bit more incremental value. I can play a Cyclonic Rift and immediately win the game. I think having that swing is very important in multiplayer games, because it keeps everyone invested in the game. One of the biggest games that fails in this idea is Monopoly. Monopoly is very famous for not having like any catch-up mechanics at all. Like, when you play Monopoly, if you start falling behind, you just fall further and further behind until you lose. And it's long and drawn out and no one likes it. If there was an ability that allowed you in Monopoly to just kind of swing back up into the game and catch back up to the person in first place, maybe not push you in first, but bring you back up to that point where you were competitive again, I think Monopoly would have a lot more appeal to a lot of people. A lot of people don't like that falling behind mechanic. There's a reason Monopoly is considered the game that like ends the most friendships, because if one person starts to take the lead, they're just going to take the lead and keep pushing everyone else away until they've just ground out more value than their opponents. So I think multiplayer players really like those kind of high variance swings, and that's important to have in multiplayer gameplay. Now, new players are very much, if you play the card, if your opponent plays the card that has this high variance, they absolutely hate it. They just don't like it. If I can just like, I play, boom, I throw a Cyclonic Rift down, and I blow up your entire board, now it's in your hand. No one likes that. If you're a new player, you don't like that. But you really like playing it. You really like being like, boom, I resolved a Cyclonic Rift, and everyone's like, no, and you're like, yeah, I did that. So new players, they have that very kind of polar look on it. They're like, I think this is cool. Now, between Spikes, Timmys, and Johnnies. Spike, again, just a quick review for the people who didn't catch the last episode and aren't familiar with this. Spike is a player who really likes to win. He likes to win. He'll play with best deck. He'll look on the internet to find the best decks. Timmy is a player who really likes big things. He likes the gigantic Brontodons. He likes big dinosaurs, big creatures, big effects, big things. He likes his individual cards to be powerful and interesting. Johnny likes the cards that, something like Aetherflux Reservoir, or if I build my deck around this and I sculpt it perfectly, and then sometimes I might get this really cool combo where I like pick up a million cards and then play a bunch of cards and like look through my deck and then pull these things out and do this and then pull that down and then I Aetherflux Reservoir you for 500. He likes that. And even if he doesn't win every game, if he wins like 1 game out of 10 with that, and he can say, yeah, my combo pulled it off, he's going to be happy. So I think by definition, Johnny is the player who likes the high individual outcome swings. So coming down between Spike and Timmy, I think these cards aggravate Spike. Timmy, it's like, oh, dude, that's sick. You got this awesome, you played a Cyclonic Rift, you bounced all my stuff, that was cool. Ooh, sorry everyone, I just punched my mic. That was cool. I liked that. Timmy really likes this, and I think Spike is the person who likes this the most. And I think it's important. Multiplayer players might absolutely hate it if, like, two opponents, they do things to each other and I can't do anything, but it still affects me. But I think it's the most healthy thing for a multiplayer format that there are those cards. Which of the following cards is typically strongest in limited play? Okay, and I'm gonna read these cards out for the people who don't know them and myself. But we're gonna pretend it's for everyone else's benefit. And Duress. Ooh, it's 1 black for sorcery. Target opponent reveals his or her hand. You choose a non-creature, non-land card from it. That player discards that card. So basically, you take a sorcery, an artifact, an enchantment, an instant, kind of those like spells. They're like traditional spells. You take a spell, and they get rid of it, which is cool. It's kind of strong. Typically, in limited, creatures are what's most powerful. Creatures in land. So Duress it's fine. It's not great. It lets you know what's coming up, and it gives you some knowledge, but that's about it. Windrake. Windrake is a flyer for 2 and a blue. That's just a 2/2. A 2/2 flyer. It's strong. It's not overpowered. I think it's a very respectable card. And I think it's a great pick if you're in blue. It allows you to kind of have that ability to push through. Flying is very powerful and limited. But it's definitely not the strongest card ever. And it's really important that cards with like this evasion aren't the most powerful things ever. Because if it was a 3/3 for 3 with flying, I would say this card's incredible. You pick this every time you see it. You build blue flyers, and you go and you win your pre-release. And that's all you got to do. But they decrease that stat line. And so now there's this trade-off. It's a 3 mana 2/2, which normally isn't very good. But it has flying, so it can usually hit in for a lot of damage over the course of a game. Whereas a 2/2 that comes down on turn 3 would usually just sit there for the rest of the game. Because it has flying, now it's just hitting for 2 every turn, and that's 10 turns and I'll win the game if I don't do anything else. So it's a very good card. I would not say it's the strongest card ever. Now with Cowl Prowler. Cowl Prowler. 4 green. It's very powerful. It's a 6/6 worm. Ooh, and that's it. Just a 6/6 worm. This is literally the most fine I could say. Like, there's nothing exciting about a Cowl Prowler. It's a big green creature. If I were playing green, I'd play it. It's big. It's hard for your opponent to deal with. It's going to start eating through your opponent's board. But it costs 6 mana, so it's going to be a while before you get it down. You can play it in the end of the game, but unlike a lot of other bombs, it doesn't have like an ability to close the game out immediately for you. It doesn't have abilities that make your opponent sack stuff. It doesn't give you card advantage. It doesn't gain you life. It doesn't do a million other things to make it more than just a vanilla creature. It's a vanilla 6/6 for 6. It's fine. Next up, Lava Axe. Ooh. Lava Axe. 4 and a red to deal 5 damage to target player. You may think, 5 mana, deal 5 damage. That's not great. That's not great, Jacob. If I play a Lightning Bolt, I can deal 3 damage for 1 mana. So if we, turned this up, that'd be 15 damage for 5 mana, which is way better than Lightning Axe. Or Lava Axe, excuse me. Which is absolutely true. But there's a card from Dominaria. I think, what is it? I can't remember. It's deal 5 damage to target opponent for 5 mana, and then you can kick it for 5 more mana to deal 10. And that it closes the game out. This is an incredibly powerful card. If I can just start hitting in and just dealing damage, get you down to 4, 5 life, boom, I just throw down a Lava Axe and I destroy you. It's an incredibly powerful effect that is not undercosted, not overcosted. It's pretty good. Next up is Pacifism. Pacifism is 1 in a white that says enchant creature. Enchanted creature can't attack or block. Pacifism is really good. It's real good. Not Not like game-breaking good. It stops a creature from attacking or blocking, so it can still tap. It can still do stuff. But it can't attack or block. And its removal, it's pseudo-removal. It doesn't actually destroy a thing. But it stops it from functioning as most creatures do in Limited, which is as a body that hits you. That's how Limited usually works. And Pacifism stops that from working. Which card is strongest? Let's see. If I had to think, if my opponent resolves any of these things, which am I the most worried about? It's going to be Pacifism. It affects my things, my stuff. It comes down early or for cheap. So my opponent, if we're on turn 6, they can play Pacifism and a 4-drop, which is going to be pretty solid. It cancels one of my things and then gives them the tempo by playing something. Lava Axe is something that I'm just constantly worried about. If I get close to 5 life, I'm like, now I have to consider 5 my 0. So I only have effectively like 15 life, you can imagine. If the existence of Lava Axe makes it very, very interesting to play around, because now if they have red mana, I have to think, well, what if they have Lava Axe? What am I going to do? Cowl Prowler, again, I'm going to say it's fine. It's not so strong that it contends with Pacifism or Lava Axe, in my opinion. I think Pacifism and Lava Axe force your opponent to be aware of what you're doing and try to think of what you're doing in a way that Cowl Prowler doesn't. Cowl Prowler comes down, and if I don't have an answer for it, you're probably going to win. It's just big and green. But it doesn't do anything to answer me. And I think that's what's most important in Limited, is being able to react to what your opponent does, so that way their bombs don't destroy you. And so for that, because Pacifism gives you the most possible interaction in Limited, specifically. Because Duress gives you the most interaction, like, overall. Like, if you're playing against Storm and you cast Duress turn 1, you can take, like, anything out of their hand. If you take a Grape Shot, boom, that's it. They probably snap concede. Not really, but it's very hard for them to come back at that point, because you've taken a very important key card. They're down a card. They lose a lot of card advantage. Pacifism stops limited threats. So I'm going to say Pacifism is the strongest card available here. Next up, question number 41. Which of the following are not generally aimed at competitive standard play? Card draw, one-shot mana acceleration, direct damage that can hit either creatures or players, mass creature kill, or counterspells. Pardon me for one moment while I drink water. Delicious. You know, talking for a long extended period of time is really taxing on my throat. And water is delicious. This stream is brought to you by water. Yes. Now, which is not generally aimed at competitive standard. Card draw, if there's one thing that makes up competitive standard, it's card draw. Or counterspells. One of it. It's card draw, counterspells, or mass creature killing. Or direct. Okay, it's one-shot mana acceleration is not generally aimed at competitive standard. One-shot mana acceleration, such as the Eldrazi Scions, whatever it is. Eldrazi Scions. That's aimed at those Timmy players who they want to get these big things down. They want to go, boom, here is my giant dinosaur. Here's my giant Eldrazi. Here's my giant thing. Isn't that cool? And you say, yeah, man, that's cool, Timmy. You're really cool. And they're like, thanks, man. I like it. And then you're like, okay, Fatal Push, it's gone. And they're like, oh, well, I still played it. That's cool, right? And you're like, yeah, that's cool, but now it's gone. So one-shot mana acceleration allows them to do their stuff, but that's not aimed at Spike. Spike is the person who likes Opt, where you scry and draw. They like Lightning Bolt, which is just deal damage. They like Wrath of God, just kill everything. They like Counterspell, which is a counterspell. The one-shot mana acceleration is fun for normal people. I shouldn't say normal people. For the average player, it's fun for the average person being able to do big things once, but it's not very competitive at like the high level. Which of the following iconic white cards is most reasonable to reprint in a standard legal set? And here we go. Once again, we're going to be reading cards. Swords to Plowshares. Ooh. Swords to Plowshares. I hear about this card a lot with Commander. It's a 1 It's just a white. For an instant, that exile target creature, its controller gains life equal to its power. So you destroy a person's thing for nearly free. It's incredibly cheap. But your opponent gains some life off of it. So it's kind of that how important is destroying this thing to you? And that's a very kind of up in the air thing. It was printed in the last printing of it was in, I don't think Conspiracy was Conspiracy standard legal? If Conspiracy wasn't standard legal, the last legal printing of it was Time Spiral, I want to say. Is that what this is? Ice Age? It was a while ago. It was a long time ago. So that's one. Swords to Plowshares, incredibly powerful. Karma, next up. Karma, 2 white enchantment. At the beginning of each player's upkeep, Karma deals damage to that player equal to the number of swamps he or she controls. Ooh. So that's like just deal damage equal to your devotion to, or not devotion, just the number of swamps you control. Armageddon. Ooh, this one's fun. Let's see if I can remember. It's 2 white, destroy all creatures, right? Let's see. Armageddon. Yep. Oh, no. Oh, this is that. Okay, I love this card so much. It's 3 and a white to destroy all lands as a sorcery. Destroying lands is cool. I like it. It's not going to see print again, but it's cool. Land destruction has kind of shifted into red, from what I can see, especially like recently. So I don't think it's very likely to see standard reprints. Bane Slayer Angel. Bane Slayer Angel is 3 white. That has flying, first strike, lifelink, protection from demons and from dragons, and it's a 5/5. So it's already a 5/5 flyer for 5, and we talked about how good this was when we were talking about Windrake. 5/5 flyer for 5 with first strike and lifelink. Already, it's an incredibly powerful card that I think would be a 3 of in any deck that ran white. It's just that powerful at ending the game. Quickly stabilizing yourself. Any control decks, you're going to slam a couple of these in there for the first strike and lifelink to be able to deal with threats as well as the flying. But then you give it protection from demons and dragons. And dragons are a very common thing in Magic because dragons are cool. Everybody likes dragons. And demons are very cool. They're both things that there's usually a couple of them in standard at any given point, and they're always very powerful. So being able to just have the Baneslayer Angel come in and just shing, chop them up is a very powerful thing to be able to do. Especially when you gain life off of it, you kill the thing and they don't even get to kill you. There you go. That's nice. And then land tax, again, just a quick reminder. Land tax is just a white that says at the beginning of your upkeep, if an opponent controls more lands than you, may search your library for up to 3 basic land cards, reveal them, put them into your hand, then shuffle your library. It's really powerful for 1 white. So powerful so that I don't think you could reprint it. I think this comes down to between Karma. Right? Karma? I have to pull this one up. This is the one I'm least familiar with, is Karma. Yeah, Karma or Swords to Plowshares or Baneslayer Angel. Baneslayer Angel was printed most recently. Swords to Plowshares is an incredibly powerful effect, but it's okay. And Karma, I think, is the least powerful. Karma is a very good sideboard card. If your opponent isn't running any swamps, Karma is a dead card. And so for that reason, because it's not an auto-include in any white deck, I think Karma is the most valuable reprint for a standard legal set. Which of the following iconic black cards is most reasonable to reprint? Demonic Tutor. I'm going to say it's not going to be Demonic Tutor. Demonic Tutor is incredibly powerful. It's 1 in a black. Search your library for a card and put that card in your hand, then shuffle your library. It's 2 mana, go get a card. This is one of the most powerful cards in black for sure. Probably Magic completely at all. It's banned in Legacy, if that tells you anything. It's that powerful. So, yeah, the dual deck version of it is $50. So this is one of those cards that, no, It will not be reprinted in a standard legal set. It would immediately make black the most powerful color in the game, and it would be a 4 of in every deck that ran black. Because even if you aren't tutoring up for like a game-winning card, if your opponent plays something and you're like, I need an answer to that, boom, Demonic Tutor, go get the answer. It would make toolbox decks explode, which I think would be awesome, but so much to the point where you just be playing answers at that point, and it's not healthy for standard to have Demonic Tutor. Next up, Sinkhole. Sinkhole is black to destroy target land. I think that's a reasonable card to reprint in standard. It requires you to be committed to black. You need double black to play it. It's a sorcery, so it's not going to be crazy powerful, and it's destroy a single land. You have cards like Stone Rain, that's 3. Deals, well, that's not a great example. There's the one, it's 4 mana, destroy a target land, or 2 in Dominaria. I'm sorry, I can't remember exactly. There's the one that randomly destroys permanents that you can use to target lands. So I think Sinkhole is reasonably fair to say it could be reprinted. Next up, Underworld Dreams, excuse me. Underworld Dreams is black for an enchantment that says whenever an opponent draws a card, Underworld damage deals 1 damage to him or her. Interesting. Again, it has the triple black. It requires you to go all in on playing black. So black is your main color in this deck. And it's very incremental damage. I think this is another one that would be fine to reprint in standard. It's a bit more powerful than Sinkhole because it punishes your opponent for doing something that they already want to do. It shuts down a lot of control decks, I think, to maybe an unhealthy point. So I think Sinkhole, and this may be crazy, I think Sinkhole is more likely to be reprinted than Underworld Dreams. Just going to put that out there. Next up, we have Demonic Consultation. Ooh. Demonic Consultation is 1 black for an instant that says name a card. Remove the top 6 cards of your library from the game. We're going to read the Oracle text because that's incredibly easier. Instant, choose a card name. Exile the top 6 cards of your library, then reveal cards from the top of your library until you reveal a card with the chosen name. Put that card into your hand and exile all other cards revealed this way. I immediately think, how can we make a Laboratory Maniac deck built around Demonic Consultation? Because the Laboratory Maniac decks are fun. Laboratory Maniac is 2 in a blue that says if you go to draw a card and your library's empty, you win the game instead of losing. But this effect, you can go just get a thing. It's kind of like, it's like Demonic Tutor for 1 cheaper that can exile a quarter of your library. I think on average is how that would end up working. A quarter to a half of your library. It still just goes and gets you a thing. I think, I don't know. This is a tough one. I think Sinkhole is more likely than Demonic Consultation. Next up, we have the Infernal Darkness. While we pull that up, the thing with Demonic Consultation is, I don't know if there's like, I just don't know how good it would be. I have no way to evaluate it. I have no idea. Infernal Darkness is 2 black with a cumulative upkeep. Pay black and 1 life. If a land is tapped for mana, it produces black mana instead of any other type. Ooh, it's Blood Moon, but strictly worse. And in black instead of red. So that one's actually, I like this card. It feels very realistic, except for the cumulative upkeep part. I think they kind of got rid of that. I think it's pretty high up on the storm scale. Cumulative upkeep is just, it's not great. It's not great. It gives you a cool lockdown for 4 mana. And I think if it didn't have a cumulative upkeep, oh yeah, because it has to do with age counters on permanents. So like the 3rd turn, you have to pay 3 black mana and 3 life. So I think they don't want to deal with that anymore. And so I'm going to say Sinkhole is the most reasonable to reprint. It No, this is hard. This is a very hard decision. And I think we're just going to pick Sinkhole and move on because it's not really important. You've heard me talk about each card, kind of some of the design problems with each of it. Cumulative upkeep is really hard to keep track of, to the point where I believe Wizards is trying to do away with it just because it's not... There's a lot of tracking that goes on with it, and it's not super easy to do. I mean, it's just a dice on the card, but even then it's not great. Okay. Question number 44. We're going to do 2 more questions. Then we're going to go talk about the design of some new cards I made for the Beacon of Creation podcast, their host Augment segment. And then that's going to be a wrap for this episode. So, question number 44. The card Felidar Guardian was banned last year in Standard because of an unintentional interaction with the Planeswalker card Saheeli Rai. If this interaction were realized late in design, what would have been the best solution? Change Saheeli Rai's mana cost to blue-blue-red so that she is harder to cast in a 3-color deck. Keep both cards as is, but add a flexible instant that can destroy either one of Felidar or Saheeli. Change Felidar Guardian's ability to return the permanent to the battlefield at the beginning of the next end step. Add 1 colorless mana to the cost of Felidar. Add Felidar enters the battlefield tapped. It's definitely making Felidar return the permanent to the battlefield at the beginning of the next end step. The problem with this combo was that you could create infinite cats with haste and then just swing in for infinite damage. But this would stop that from happening. It would still give you that cool ability to like blink stuff in and out and then create lots of cats over time, but it wouldn't be instant and it wouldn't be lose the game immediately. It would give your opponent a chance to respond to it. Having it enter the battlefield tapped, you still get infinite cats the turn you play it. And that's the problem with that. Adding mana, changing the mana costs makes it harder to cast, but it doesn't actually do anything to solve the problem of 2-card infinite combo win. And being able, just adding a response is just, it's lazy design. It's, oh, here's a problem, here's a card that just does it. It just stops it. So, changing it so that way you still get the effect over time of infinite cats is cool, and it's flavorful, like you can get all these cool things, and there's just like blinking in and out, and that's cool. But it's not overpowering. Question 45. Assuming all of the following designs are costed at an appropriate power level and win rate in Standard, which would be the least fun to show up in competitive play? An artifact that taps to add 3 mana to your mana pool, an enchantment that stops all creatures from attacking, looking at you, Ensnaring Bridge. This is Ensnaring Bridge with upside. An artifact that causes each player to lose 2 life during their upkeep, an enchantment that lets you name a card and stops the named card from being cast. Looking at you, what's it called? Sorcerer's Spyglass, or a sorcery that destroys all non-land permanents. I'm going to say an enchantment that stops all creatures from attacking. That shuts down a very important and interesting part of the game in a way that just isn't healthy. It's not fun for anyone to look at watching a game that does that. So, now we've gone through another 15 questions today. We're going to take a couple minutes and we're going to talk about Oladar. Now, the Beacon of Creation podcast has a competition where you create a card every week, or a set of cards, or some cards. This week's contest is to create a Planeswalker that is a type, creature type, and has mana colors that it is not predominantly its creature type. Here, let me read this specifically. This is from mattolaf.blogspot.com. This is the main place for their stuff. The host Augment. You have to create a Planeswalker from a specific plane and race that doesn't match that race's colors and must use Transform to turn into a non-Planeswalker. Now, we've seen a lot of Planeswalkers that transform into, or a lot of creatures that transform into Planeswalkers, but we've never seen Planeswalkers that transform into creatures. So we're designing things for the back-end way. And I'm going to say right away, this is an incredibly overpowered card. I spent about an hour trying to design these, and I've never designed Planeswalkers before, so they're very difficult to do properly, I think. And this feels like a very green Planeswalker that you have to pay white or red for. So that's another problem that I think just more time would help me solve. But we're going to talk about this. So it costs 3, and then red white or red white, or red white red white. So already I think I would change it to 2 red red white white. It forces you into those colors, those other 2 colors strongly, and then still kind of gives you a little bit, like if you splash for green, you still get the cool like elf effects. It comes in with 4 loaded counters, and its +1 says create a 1/1 Lost Elf Druid token with tap to add red or white. So you're getting that kind of mana ramp in red and white, which is something you don't normally get. And it's a very elf thing to do, ramping mana. You can tick it down 2 to add red, red, white, white to your mana pool. Or you can take it down 7 to create a 1/1 lost elf token for each elf you control, then flip Aladar. And so this just, it makes a bunch of elves. If, assuming you play Aladar, you have no other elves in the battlefield because you're in red and white, you'll make 3 elves, you'll flip him, you'll now have 6 elves, and then you get Aladar the Accepted. Aladar the Accepted's power and toughness are equal to the number of elves you control, so it'll be 6/6. You can tap him to create a 1/1 lost elf druid token with tap, add red or white to your mana pool. And you can pay 5 to give other elves you control gain +1/+1 Mountain Walk and Planeswalk until end of turn. And so this other side, I wanted to design something that cared about the number of elves you have, because that's a very green ability, but still kind of push in on the red and white. So I put Mountain Walk and Planeswalk in there. Another thing that they really want to do is ramp really hard, so I put a nice mana sink onto it. And so these things, I think it's a very powerful card. I think if you're playing red-white, you can throw Aladar in there without really affecting yourself all that much. In fact, to the point of it doesn't even matter that they're elves. And so I think that's the biggest problem. I think I'd do something that cares more about elves. And so instead it's more just the flavor of it. The flavor of this creature kind of makes that elf system. So I think if I were to do this card again, I would put more on the front side that cared about having green mana. So now you're forced into 3 colors, very hard. I'd change the mana cost. And I think that those things make this very interesting character where you might not have a super easy way to play him. But then he gives you these really cool ramping abilities where you just get lots of stuff. And I'm a big fan of lots of stuff in Magic. So, this has been episode 2 of Dice, Decks, and Design. I'm your host, Jacob. I'll be back again next week at 7:30 here on twitch.tv/thefabricofreality. Make sure to tune in. You can check out any episodes you haven't seen on youtube.com. Just search Dice, Decks, and Design or The Fabric of Reality. Either one will get you right to my channel where you can check out all the awesome podcasts. Yeah, follow me on Twitter, __Jacob, which I will hopefully be changing soon because that is incredibly difficult to say. And I just don't like it. It's not a great Twitter handle. I need a good Twitter handle. I just don't have one, which is unfortunate. But thank you, everybody, for tuning into the stream. I will see you guys in the next one. Take care. Bye!